I'm Doug Doherty with Hamilton Flourishing, and we're so glad that you've joined us today. With me is Donna Harrison, Dr. Donna Harrison, who is the president and CEO of American, let me see if I can say it right, the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Why interview Donna here in Chattanooga? If you don't know, if you haven't heard, um, Planned Parenthood is making plans to come to Chattanooga. Chattanooga used to have an abortion clinic 20 years ago, and some folks uh, ended that. We bought the clinic and we ran them out. Um, and we hadn't had one in over 20 years, but they want to come back and they want to get involved in sex education in the schools, and they want to do community organizing, which is a curious matter. So I thought it'd be great to refresh all those folks who know, or those who don't know about Planned Parenthood. Who are they? What are they? Where'd they come from? How much of the business of abortion are they involved in? Are they a big threat? Why are they so involved in politics? What's the profile of Planned Parenthood? So we got Donna, who is the president of this organization. She's also a doctor. She's an MD. She's delivered a bunch of babies in her life. She's now devoted full time to this association. And Donna, we're just so glad you're able to join us today. Thanks a lot.
Well, you're welcome. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, listen, our pleasure. Tell me this. Um, Tell me a little bit about the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. A little bit the history and what are you all up to?
Yeah, okay. So we are 7,000 reproductive health professionals, mostly OB-GYNs, but we have midwives and we have some ER doctors and we have some family medicine doctors who do reproductive gynecology. And we exist to equip our members and the general public to understand what abortion does to women from the peer-reviewed scientific literature. So we have people all over the country. We have OB-GYNs all over the country who act according to the Hippocratic Oath, and that is they won't kill you and they won't kill your child. And that's really important as we look at medical ethics and what is it to be a pro-life OB-GYN. It means to be on your side and on the side of your family. And that's who we are.
Tell me a little bit about, people don't know this, but the Hippocratic Oath, which is what doctors, I don't know if they still take it, but they used to take it, had a phrase in it that said you would not give any, I can't remember what the word is, but you wouldn't give a abortion causing drug to anybody. Is that not true?
That is correct. The Hippocratic Oath was actually phased out of many medical schools. The original oath was phased out of many medical schools way back in the 60s when there was a push to legalize abortion. So I graduated from University of Michigan Medical School. My class in 86 was one of the last classes to actually take the Hippocratic Oath, and it was optional. But you are exactly right. The oath says things like, I won't take advantage of patients sexually or any other way. I won't kill them. I won't offer euthanasia or suggest it. And similarly, I will not give a woman a drug or any device to induce an abortion. And it's similar, the similarity is euthanasia and abortion both kill human beings. And doctors didn't go into medicine to kill human beings. They went into medicine to help them live. And we consider our pregnant woman to be not only she is our patient, but also her unborn child is our patient. So we just don't kill our patients. And that's what the Hippocratic Oath is about.
It's just fascinating that for hundreds of years, doctors, pessary, that's the word I was looking for. I think that's what it's called. They won't give them any.
Pessary.
How do you say it?
Well, pessary, but pessary has changed meanings.
Oh, has it?
Then. Basically, the idea is, Yeah, the idea is we're not going to kill our unborn patients because they're human beings too. And we went into medicine to preserve life, not to take it.
Well, for anybody who's watching this, Donna, you speak from a national platform. You have credentials. Um, Tell us a little bit about, give us just a profile about Planned Parenthood. Can you talk anything about their history? Where did they come from? Because it sounds like such a
Sure.
nice thing, Planned Parenthood. Like anybody can really plan for parenthood. You don't know what you're going to do till you get there. But anyway, it sounds very nice, but their genesis is anything but nice, at least from my study. Can you talk about where Planned Parenthood came from and a little bit?
So in the early part of the 1900s, the 1920s, 1930s, there was a big movement afoot to purify the genetics of society. So those who were in the elite decided that they would have racial purity. And in the United States, the American Eugenics Society formed. In Germany, it was the Nazi Party. And both of them ran on the same ideas, and that is that there are racially pure people and there are people who are impure or deplorable. And this kind of cultural arrogance is what spawned parenthood. They as a function of the American Eugenics Society. Well, after World War II, when the horrific crimes of Nazi Germany were exposed, eugenics took on a bad word. So it took on a bad connotation. So the American Eugenics Society project turned into being renamed as Planned Parenthood. But Margaret Sanger was a horrible eugenicist. She thought that she said that the best thing that a large family can do for one of its members is to kill it. And she also said that that Negroes, that people who were Black were inferior. And it's this attitude that has continued in Planned Parenthood. If you read the recent New York Times article, they actually, about Planned Parenthood by the founder or by the current head of Planned Parenthood, she admits it. She admits Margaret Sanger's horrific eugenic nature and the whole eugenic nature of Planned Parenthood. Well, it's fine to admit it, but the fact is they're still doing the same thing. Most Planned Parenthood clinics are specifically and purposely located within about a 3-4 mile radius of a Black or Hispanic neighborhood. Currently, African American women have 3 times the abortion rate as Caucasian women. That's not by accident. That's by marketing. And
Three times?
ugly 3 times as many abortions in Black women as there are in white women. And that is specifically because the purpose of Planned Parenthood is eugenic when you get down to it. And that's the ugly reality. That's their ugly history.
How big, Donna, uh, talking to Dr. Donna Harrison, American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists, how big is Planned Parenthood? Do you have any data on how big they are? I mean, how much money do they make? How many abortions they do?
Yeah.
What percentage of the abortions in America are done by Planned Parenthood? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I do. And that's the reason I had to go to my papers because I don't keep those numbers in my head. But I think most people would be surprised that Planned Parenthood's annual revenue is 1.3 billion with a B, including a 530 million in government funding, like Medicaid reimbursements. And yet it is a quote 501c3 not-for-profit. Planned Parenthood performs 395,000 abortions each year. And in Tennessee, it looks like it performs 5,000 to 7,000 abortions every year. Now, if you ask, well, Planned Parenthood will say, well, abortion is just a small fraction of what we do. That is creative statistics. Because what happens is if a woman walks in the door for an abortion and the doctor happens to listen to her heart and lungs, that's considered a separate procedure. And if they happen to do a pelvic exam, that's a separate procedure. But in fact, 96% of the pregnant clients who walk into Planned Parenthood leave with an abortion. Okay, if you compare that to their prenatal services, 2.3% of Planned Parenthood clinics services are prenatal services. Adoption referrals,
Say that again.
Okay, prenatal services, 2.3%. 2.3% of what Planned Parenthood does is prenatal care. Adoption referrals, 0.7%, less than a percent. So women that walk in are not being given choices. What's happening is they're being sold an abortion. And that's the reality behind Planned Parenthood.
What's the percentage again of those women who walk in, who get an abortion?
So of pregnant women that walk into Planned Parenthood, 96% walk out having been sold an abortion. 96%.
There's really no question.
That's marketing. That's
There's
not
no
choice.
question then that they're advocating much more for the abortion than they are for, say, adoption or any other alternative, like keeping a child and trying to resolve a relationship or something like that. Their
Yes,
mission.
and that is in contrast. That is in contrast to pregnancy care centers. Pregnancy care centers truly offer women options, and they offer women support. They offer them counseling. They offer a lot of services. Planned Parenthood offers abortion.
Yeah, and not to stray too far from a path, but the number of people waiting to adopt babies in this country, I think it's been a few years since I looked at it, but there's a very large number. It's like 15 to 20 couples per baby are in waiting or something like that. And so there's more than enough open arms who would take these children and raise them as their own. And so it's not like there is a lack of love for children, even those born by other people. Um, so Planned Parenthood is saying they're coming to Chattanooga. On our website of hamiltonflourishing.org, we've posted the 2 job descriptions they're looking for. They're looking for I've got them right here. They're looking for a health educator who will be involved in schools, educating people on their perspective about abortion, sexual education, reproductive issues, gender issues, and they're also advertising for a community organizer. Goodness knows why they need a community organizer. That smells of political activity to me. So in both of these, you can go to our website, hamiltonflourishing.org, and you can actually see these job descriptions for yourself from Planned Parenthood. And if you have any questions yourself about, well, why are you saying this? You're making all this up. No, we're not making up. We never make things up. And this is fact. And we've been at war with these people for years, and they keep coming back. So the people in Chattanooga are stirred up. At least almost 40% of the people strongly oppose this, and only about 20-something% strongly support this. So there's a lot of resistance to this, Donna, and maybe you've got some thoughts about how we as a community can respond to Planned Parenthood. I think education goes a long, long way. What do you think?
Well, I serve as the sex ed contact person for my high school system and my grade school system. And in Michigan, the alternative, if nobody steps forward, the alternative is Planned Parenthood. And I think it's something that parents need to understand, that they need to get together and they need to tell their school system that they will not tolerate a Planned Parenthood educator coming in to educate their children about sex. Because Planned Parenthood is about money. It's about selling abortions. It's not about teaching abstinence-based sex ed. So when you look at sex ed programs that work, that actually decrease teen pregnancy rate, that decrease rates of first sexual intercourse, those programs are abstinence-based programs. The programs that teach kids how to put a condom on a banana are not abstinence-based programs. They're programs that are starting to groom teenagers, and actually, unfortunately, even younger clients into sexual activity, because Planned Parenthood knows that when a teen becomes sexually active, they're not going to consistently use contraception, and they're going to show up for an abortion. It's a horrendous thing, and I think parents need to be aware that Planned Parenthood is the last person that you want counseling your kids about what is appropriate sexual activity and what is healthiest for them in their life.
Yeah, I just want everybody to know that Planned Parenthood is planning on coming to Chattanooga. In the past, when they've come to Chattanooga, they've gotten money from big money foundations in town. We hope that doesn't happen again. I'm sure these foundations would not like to have people picketing and protesting in their hallways, but that will be exactly what happens. I can guarantee it, because just of past history in Chattanooga. Um, Chattanooga is changing. We're not the same city we were 20 years ago, and so it could be we just have a new administration in the city hall, so that could have an effect on things. So we'll see what goes on. And but Donna, I mean, when we talk about the evils of abortion, there's no bigger player than Planned Parenthood, is there?
And the whole deception that Planned Parenthood hides behind is that somehow what they're doing is medical care. But the fact is, elective abortion is not medical care. Elective abortion treats no disease. Pregnancy is not a disease. Pregnancy is a natural process by which all of us got here. So to call it a disease is completely wrong. So you start with a lie, which is that pregnancy is a disease, and then you continue with the lie that somehow killing that baby inside the womb is somehow beneficial for the mom. But the fact is that when women have abortions, they increase their risk of preterm birth in later pregnancies. So what is a preterm birth? That's when the baby is born at the edge of life, 22 to 26 weeks. And why does that happen? Because when you have an abortion, surgical abortion, the womb has to be forcibly opened and scraped out. And that can leave little bits of tissue inside that can cause chronic infection. And it weakens the womb, so that the womb, when it later has another pregnancy, may not be able to hold that baby inside. That's called cervical incompetence. That is one of the reasons why the risk of preterm birth has increased dramatically since 1980. We have 1 out of 12 women now having preterm birth. This is horrendous. We never had such a high rate. It's directly, part of it is directly attributable to elective abortion in our country. So abortion increases the risk of preterm birth and subsequent pregnancies. It increases a woman's risk of depression, suicide, and drug abuse, a dramatic increase. And the reason this whole came to light was that in Finland, where the medical record is owned by the country of Finland, there was a review by their national statistics review looking at what causes death in reproductive age women. And they found that compared to a woman who gave birth, a woman who had an abortion was at a 4 times higher risk of suicide. And when those suicides occur, we're at around the time of the anniversary of when that aborted baby would have been born, which is exactly what you would expect if there was an anniversary grief reaction. So to say that women who lose babies have no grief reaction is to hide your head in the sand. We know from women who miscarry, from women who have babies who spontaneously are born and then die or die after birth, there's a dramatic grief reaction that happens. And those grief reactions also happen with women who abort their babies. It's just the women who abort their babies are now in a position where they're not allowed to admit that they had a child that they've lost. So they have a complicated grief because nobody acknowledges that they're grieving for their child. It's a horrendous situation for a woman. And then the third thing that happens, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, you finish what you're saying. I have a question, but I want to wait. You finish. You're on a roll, so I don't want to stop you. So,
Okay. So yes, there's three major things that happen to women who abort as compared to women who give birth. So the first is preterm birth, and the second is an increase in suicide, drug abuse, and hospitalizable depression. And the third is if a woman aborts and then she's never brought a baby to term before, and she delays bringing a baby to term, she has now arrested her breast in a state where she has a majority of her breast tissue is immature cancer susceptible tissue. You see, the biggest thing that happens in a woman's life that decreases her risk of breast cancer is bringing a baby to term. And so if you delay and you don't have any children, your risk is increased. Or if you get pregnant and you lose that baby, whether it's abortion or automobile accident, if you lose a child before 24 weeks, you have just put most of your breast tissue in a cancer susceptible state because the pregnancy causes breast tissue to grow, but it's immature tissue until the second half of the pregnancy. And that's what most people don't understand. And especially teens, aborting teens. This is what makes it so horrific to have a sex ed program that pushes abortion, is that teens who abort then have a longer time before they bring their breast cancer resistant maturity. That is, they bring a baby to term, and that increases their risk of breast cancer. So these things aren't known, but they need to be known because they're in the medical literature, and it's been there for, I mean, for example, the preterm birth stuff, 60 years. We've known for 60 years that abortions increase a woman's risk of preterm birth. And yet the general public doesn't know that. That's not good. So that's to solve, to let people know these really are what your risks are.
wow, this is great information. I hope everybody is listening to this, especially if you have preteens or teenagers in your home. You should know this. If you're a young woman who is sexually active, you should know all this stuff. I mean, there are risks to this sort of stuff, and you're not going to hear this from anyone. But Donna is a doctor. She's delivered babies. She's the head of a national organization. She's talking about peer-reviewed science. Good stuff. Donna, I do want to ask you one question. One of the thing I hear the most in just a kind of a casual conversation with people that don't know really where they stand and says, "Oh, well, that baby, it's just, it's hers."
Go ahead.
Yeah. So people say, "Oh, it's a woman's body." Scientifically, talk about that statement. Is that accurate?
No, it's not. Because from the moment that the sperm and the egg membranes fuse, you have a new human being. It's called a zygote. It's a one-celled embryo. And the embryo is where we all started from. We were all embryos. That one-celled embryo divides and becomes a two-celled embryo, which divides and becomes a four-celled embryo, and so on and so forth. There's another human being that we have to be concerned about. And that human being starts at the moment of sperm egg membrane fusion. That human being's called a zygote. That's a one-celled embryo. And we were all there. Every one of us was a one-celled embryo that turned into a two-celled embryo and a four-celled embryo. And we continued one continuous existence to the point we are today. The same DNA, the same organism. There's nothing magic that happened at birth. We were the same person in the womb as we were outside of the womb. And so when you have two people joined together as a mom and a baby are in pregnancy, then you have to consider both of the welfare of both of those human beings. We know, well, for example, how else could a woman carry a male fetus? I mean, obviously, the boy inside her is not her. The DNA of that child inside her, whether girl or boy, is not her DNA. It's half her DNA, but it's not all. The other half from the biological father. So this is a separate human being, separate from her body.
So we've been talking to Donna Harrison, who is the President and CEO of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. There's over 7,000 of them. They talk only about the science involving children and the abortion procedure. And you heard her talk about the risk and the dangers of that. You talked about how big Planned Parenthood is, how much money they have, and they're coming to Chattanooga. So this is Doug Daugherty with Hamilton Flourishing. I just want to encourage you, if you don't believe me, go to our website, hamiltonflourishing.org, and you can see the job descriptions posted for a community organizer and an educator in our schools, health educator. And also you will see on there in our thing, a petition that's being circulated, and you download the petition. It's paper, and it will be once you download it. You sign it, and then at the bottom there's an address that it can be sent. These are being collected, that we hope to get thousands of names. And then once we get thousands of names, it'll be turned in and it'll be used with different pressure points in the community, whether that's a funding person or a political person or a legal person, or just say, hey, there's this many people. That with the polling we've done will be used. And so we hope to have more action for you coming up. So use this video, show people what you learned today from Donna Harrison, MD. This is Doug Daugherty with Hamilton Flourishing. Our website is hamiltonflourishing.org. And we hope that you'll go there and you'll see for yourself what's going on. We had an abortion clinic here in Chattanooga years ago. We haven't had one for a long time. And now they're trying to come back. So, and lots of people don't want it, and especially conservative people. So we encourage that. We hope you'll join with us and be a part of saying, no, I'd rather somebody else educate my children, or I'd rather do it myself. I don't want Planned Parenthood doing it. And, you probably don't want them in the community. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You need to examine your own heart if you want them in there. I think, why do you want them here? So anyway, this is Doug Daugherty with Hamilton Flourishing, and we appreciate you watching and hope you'll check this out and you'll take some action. All right, bye-bye.